Hey there, beautiful joy seeker. I'm your host, Kaz Humphreys, and I'm a change chick. And welcome to the I Am Changing podcast, episode number 44, Loving What Is. This is another gem from a latest blog, 4 magical questions to reframe garbage thoughts, because let's face it, we all have them. Do you know what? As a multi-modality therapist, I'm regularly seeing people who want me to provide interventions for clients. And one of the most powerful tools that I share is what I call the circuit breaker. And by this, what I'm talking about is when we consciously acknowledge that you're experiencing a garbage thought, that there's something negative, hostile, or you're not loving all over yourself. When you first notice that sensation, get into a circuit breaker to change that mental thinking habit. And it's worth noting we can have up to 60,000 thoughts a day. So it shocks my clients when I advise that approximately 75% of those thoughts are actually negative. Your brain doesn't want to have to do the work to reframe to positive. And of that 75% of your thoughts that are negative, 95% of them have been repeated from yesterday. Sit with that. 75% of your thoughts are negative and 95% of them are repeated from yesterday. I know. Wow, right? It's human nature for our brain to not want to have to work or think of something positive. It takes energy. So, unless you've actually got a subconscious habit to reframe negativity and actively seek positivity, you're going to end up with garbage thoughts. The reality is that we all have moments where we experience those garbage thoughts. But when we have too many of them in a single day, this can leave us feeling heavy, dull, anxious, panicky. And this is where my suggestion to insert a circuit breaker into your internal conversation that occurs inside your head can be very beneficial. After reading Byron Katie's Loving What Is book, I fell in love with the simplicity of her 4-question process that changes your thought process and ultimately your thinking as a habit. Here are the 4 questions to insert your circuit breaker and reframe negativity out of your thinking habits. Question number 1, is that true? When you find yourself stuck in your survival program and all of the associated thoughts that go with that, it's so easy to produce a garbage thought inside your head. And when we have too many of them in a single day, this can leave you feeling heavy and dull. The moment you observe or consciously notice that the garbage thought is there, ask yourself, is that true? And the question forces the brain to get out of the program of survival that's from a past tense and come back into the present moment and activate the frontal lobes of your mind to become solution orientated once again. So, in other words, when you ask, is something true, it allows you to observe and reflect if, in fact, that statement is true or not without judgment. Question number 2, if your first instinct when you say, is that true? And you go, oh, well, yeah. So you've asked yourself, is that true? Perhaps you've found your first response to say yes. This second question, well, how do you know it's true? This is a response. That initial reaction of, yes, that's true, is a response of the component of the negative thinking habit. When we become unconditional in the thought process, we haven't reflected, we haven't reassessed the value of that thought. We've merely automated it. So asking, well, how do you know it's true, allows you to come back to the present moment and take another good look at it and seek validation with a fresh perspective. Hey, is that old garbage thought that I had real? There's so much power in realizing that a garbage thought often is not real, wanted, or warranted. The third question, so how do you react when you have those thoughts? Often when I'm working with a client, the second question instigates a level of reflection. And with some active questioning and some, counseling micro skills, we explore gently whether the thought is true or it's merely just a habit. I follow up with the third question. So how do you react when you have those thoughts? And this empowers the client to get out of their thinking and reflect on the behavior that the thought then activates. So, in other words, what actions are you taking when the garbage thought crops up? Because when we can reflect on our reaction, we can actively and gently explore the trigger and the old story of how that negative thought and the habit of that thought arose. Asking someone, how do you react when you have those thoughts? Then enables them to decide, wowzers, that old behavioral response, holy crap, that's now outdated. And people so very quickly recognize, I say this thing and I feel this thing, and they all of a sudden there's harmony again between the mind and the body. And this is an incredibly powerful space for positive choice point to then be created. Question number 4, who would you be without that thought? And whoo, it's a zinger, isn't it? I liken this final question as if you're stepping out of the situation, stepping out of the garbage and taking a really damn good look at the experience and going, yeah, no thanks. I'm actually done with that. You get to ask yourself, who would I be without the thought? And this directly connects you to the vibration and the intention of unconditional love. It's the ultimate destination for positive change because it comes without shame, blame, or guilt. It comes without judgment. Go, well, that's where I want to be. The garbage thought isn't resonating for me anymore. I'm done with it. Cancel that garbage thought. Stop, done, delete. Because there's power in immediately recognizing an outdated negative thought and realizing you can cancel it. Saying to the universe, cancel that, reframe, choose again, or simply delete. It's up to you. It doesn't matter whatever language works for you to shift out the old garbage and allow the new vibration of love in. So to wrap up the 4 questions, is that true? How do I know that's true? Who would I be without that thought? And the 4th question, so the 3rd question was, how do I react when I have the thought? Who would I be without that thought? Pretty powerful, isn't it? I was wrapping up a client program the other day and she told me she'd been inside her head challenging her garbage thoughts. And after work, we'd been working together for a couple of months. And this amazing human then came back to a final session saying, I now instigate the empowerment circuit breaker myself. I'm in charge of my new habits. At first, I was constantly saying, cancel that, delete that. And she said, I felt overwhelmed. I said, let's reframe that to feeling empowering because you're plowing through the stuff you're going to repeat tomorrow. And so now she tells me I call bullshit on all the stupid self-doubt based negativity that bubbles away and has been percolating for years. And I'm delighted to say she now chooses to change and feel safe again. She did and continues to do the work and actively use all 4 questions, creating circuit breakers on a daily basis. And best of all, she now reports that the frequency and volume of garbage thoughts has reduced vastly. She's now saying, I don't get anxiety anymore. I don't get panic. I don't even get overwhelmed or overthink. I call it out when I see it. That's a garbage thought. And so I'm sharing this with you today because you too can attempt those 4 circuit breaker questions the next time your life becomes a roller coaster of negativity. You can get off the negativity ride when it gets bumpy and insert positivity in your life. To wrap up today's podcast episode, let me give you a huge shout out for your support. I'm so grateful for you being here. Thank you in advance for liking and possibly sharing this episode within your own change tribe. I hope it generates a fire of loving support and proactive discussion of how you can take your journey steps throughout life, regardless of the challenges that experience has brought you. There are daily inspirational posts on my social media pages. Simply search for me in the links in the show notes below. It helps me to grow my podcast audience when you can hit the follow button. I'd be so grateful. I'm your podcast host, Kaz Humphreys, aka The Change Chick. And the mantra of I am changing is a reminder that we all can choose to change and bloom from within. Thanks for listening.